for Enrich's going now.
Okay, I think this says it's recording.
Well, I think...
Thelma, did you hear what Brian said?
Uh-huh.
What did he say?
And I'm saying it.
She's
It
not
says
gonna
that Johnson's,
Yeah.
Inyards, and DeLauders are going, but I didn't know Inyards were going to be going again.
Is that thing on?
It is on now, and today is what? August 12th, 2006, one day after Dean's 80th birthday.
And when are we going to have the birthday?
1 week from today, on the
Saturday?
19th, is it?
19th, from
Yeah.
1 to 3.
Oh, good. I can get my hair done on Friday then.
Okay. All right.
If I read the papers right, I'm 2 days older than Castro.
Oh.
Casper?
Castro.
You mean you're talking about the Mexican?
The friendly ghost.
Cuba.
No, Cuba.
Cuba.
Fidel.
Okay, Julie's going to start asking questions, so we'll see what comes out of your mouth.
Okay. How did your parents select your first and middle names?
You know, I don't know how they selected my first name. I'm pretty sure the middle name, Dean, was selected from a preacher that came to Normal to preach about one Sunday a month. And his name was Fankboom. Dean Fankboom. And we thought quite a bit of him. He was a chiropractor.
Did his wife come with him?
I don't remember his wife at all.
Now, what is your first name?
Aubrey.
Do you like your first name?
I hardly ever use it. I never use. Julie, why did you ask me that?
She knew you'd laugh. She'd get you to laugh.
Okay, Thelma, how did your parents select your name?
Well, my mother had a girlfriend in high school, and her name was Thelma Hill. Well, I couldn't be Hill in the middle, so she called me Thelma Mae.
Okay.
After her
All
girlfriend.
right. The second question, did you have a nickname either when you were young or as an adult?
I didn't.
Somehow or other, I named myself after Campbell's soup. I always remembered that.
Well, I know Fred Oakley calls you Dino.
Oh, well, I call him Fredo, too.
How about the eagle eye thing? Tell us about the
Eagle Eye? You mean from Tom Schrock?
Yeah.
From the real estate office?
Oh, yes, that's
I might have a certificate on that. I don't know.
You do, I think.
Well, the second question, if yes, how did you get your nickname? So I guess I'll go for that. All right. When and where were you born?
Wait a minute.
Well, wait a minute. He didn't get to face that
okay.
one.
I'm sorry. All right. Go.
Your eagle eye. What was
Eagle.
that? What was that all about?
Oh,
How
well,
did you get that nickname?
I worked for a real estate office, and Tom Schrock was the principal broker. And he would take me with him, and, you know, we would look at homes when we put them on the market. And if something wasn't quite level, I could detect it when I got up there. If something wasn't quite plumb, I could detect that because I've done a lot of building in my years. And I don't remember what he called me. Was it Eagle Eye?
I think that's what that certificate said.
I didn't get that certificate. So
Yeah, well, it's right
Mr.
over
Eagle
here.
Eye, we want you to come along to look at this house and tell us what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
What is that certificate?
I'm pretty sure it's right there.
Yeah.
I got the stack off of the dining room table, but I didn't remember seeing that.
It was with something we did today.
Eyeball award.
Eyeball.
Okay. So it didn't mean too much to me, though.
Okay. All right. When and where were you born, and how did your family come to live where you were born?
I was born in Herbst, Indiana. I was born in August the 11th, 1926. And as far as my background, you know, my father and mother, ask Brian.
Okay, Thelma, how about you?
Well, I think I was born out on the farm where my mother and dad bought a little farm out in the country. but I don't know the. And one thing, I was the last one of 4 or 5 grandchildren to my grandparents, you know, and we were close together, all 4 or 5 of us. There was Pauline and Leroy and Herbert, and then there was Smedley's. What was the oldest Smedley? Lawrence Smedley and Norman Smedley, and their sister, I think, was Dolores, or I can't even remember now. And then their younger brother, Jeffrey, I think, that lived out in Washington, D.C., and he died of a heart attack very suddenly. And so all that bunch of kids, there was about 3 times size 15, I guess. We were sort of the kids of the family.
Where were you living at the time?
We always went to church together because that's where they had church, in Grandpa's basement of their house. And they'd always come for church, or else we had church in the Uncle
Sadie?
Forrest Johnson had a barber shop, and he saved enough out of the lounge area of the barber shop to have a church in their home or in their shop.
Okay, where was you born?
What city was that, Mother? What town?
South Bend.
Okay. Were either one of you born at a hospital?
No, I don't.
And Thelma, what is your birthday?
February 26, 1928.
Okay. Should I go on? Okay, the next 4 questions are regarding your baptism. When were you baptized? Do you remember?
Julie, I'm not sure. I wished many times that they had given baptism certificates back then, but they didn't do things like that. I think I was about 14 years old, which would be about 1940 when I was baptized. As far as I remember, I was baptized the same day that Paul Hoggatt, my cousin, was baptized, and I think Dean Pankbooner baptized.
Okay, now where were you baptized?
Well, there was a little pond back of the normal Church of Christ building that nearly everyone was baptized in that pond that I can remember.
And you said by whom were you baptized?
Dean Pankbooner.
Okay. And the other question was, what do you remember about the day when you were baptized?
I don't.
Nothing in particular. How about you, Thelma?
I was born in the St. Joe River in Osceola. It was a place where they had the kids could go swimming, you know, right on the edge of the river there. It wasn't very deep. So my good friend that I used to have come home with me, or I'd go and stay over the weekend with her. Can't think of her name very well either, though.
Barbara, was it a Barbara Beatty? Was that her name?
Yeah, Barbara Beebe, that's what it was.
Did you see
What
that?
happened there?
The light came on.
And
What's that mean?
That it thought it was too dark.
we both went in the lake, in the river, and Charles Hoggatt baptized us.
Okay.
Because the preacher didn't want to do that. He was J.C. Rhodey, and he was scary. But anyway, Charles baptized us.
Do you remember about how old you were?
Probably about 4th or 5th grade. I'm not sure. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Did you know that, Daddy, that Charles had been
I
baptized?
don't think I knew that.
Oh, wow. That's neat.
Charles baptized you, Thelma?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
I don't think the preacher wanted to be
J.C.
baptized,
Rhodey, yeah.
and I'll make a big mess, and then he was probably preaching that night again too.
He didn't want to be wet.
Well, Sunday morning was when because we had a picnic or something, and we went out there after dinner then and had the baptism. So.
Okay, what do you know about the religion of your parents and grandparents?
Julie, I don't remember the first time I was taken to church, of course. My mother and dad were Christians, and Dad was an elder at the church at Normal for many, many years. And my older sister, that's 8 years older than me, she made just a general statement the other day. She's very emotional. At times she gets carried away. But she said, Dean, aren't you thankful that we were brought up by Christian parents?
Okay, how about you, Thelma? What congregation did your family attend?
Well, we went to Calvert and Caroline when they got a place to meet outside the home. And there wasn't a restroom in that building at all. And in order to use a restroom, we had to walk down to the corner to the gas station. Well, of course, as teenage kids, as we got older, we had to go to the restroom a lot, it seemed like. We got told about that, that we weren't to go out and go to the restroom just whenever we wanted to. But that was the problem.
Okay.
And they had, we had like 4 teachers. There was a teacher for the little tiny kids, and then there was a teacher for the kids that I was. That means always my age, and his name was McBride, wasn't he?
Fred McBride?
Fred McBride, yeah. He was a teacher to us. He didn't have any children himself, and it was not very helpful. Boring, I thought. But, he did what he could, I guess. And then they had another preacher preaching a class in the auditorium. Well, those 2 classes were in the auditorium. The kids' class was in the back, and the adult class was in the front. And, it was loud. It was noisy. We couldn't hear. We'd sit and listen to what the older people said if they were laughing or getting caught up about something in class, But I learned what we were doing. My mother and father both were strong members. My father wasn't before he met my mother because his folks were not members of the church either. But he always was just like my mother as far as going to church. They were determined to do that all the time.
Well, good. Okay, how did your parents meet? Do you know?
Don't you know anything about that story?
I don't remember
Do you know how your parents met, Thelma?
Well, I think that his folks lived next door to her folks, and she got acquainted with him. He didn't finish high school. He got upset with his teacher in high school for some reason. That sounded strange about my dad, but he did anyway. He didn't finish high school, but he liked to work on cars, and in those days they worked a lot on race cars. And we've got a couple pictures of him sticking his head from around behind a race car, and that was one thing he liked to do when he was a kid. And then as he grew older, that's something he was drafted to do all the time. Everybody would come out to see him. Roy, do you know what's wrong with this car? I've got troubles with it. And
Mother, I think it was interesting that they took a long honeymoon trip.
oh yeah, I don't know. It sounds extreme for that age, that time. But my dad had a car, and it looked like a car that had a hood you could pull up over it. And they drove out to North Dakota, I believe it was, or South Dakota, I'm not sure. Really bare-looking place out there, a small house. And I don't know, maybe my father was born out there. I don't know that. Do we have anything that shows that, where he was born?
His birth certificate says he was born in Atwood, Indiana.
Oh, he probably was, yeah. His folks lived down there, but that's where Grandma lived down there, And so they went on that trip out there after their wedding, and I can't imagine what they did, where they slept or where they stayed overnight, or where they drove on the highways out there. Oh my goodness, that seemed like it was a long trip, but I never talked to her very much about it. I should have more, I guess.
Daddy,
I don't know how.
Your parents, your dad was born in Grant County, in that area.
And my mother was from
Ohio. Adams County, Ohio, and they moved there when she was pretty young, and they lived right next to the church building. So I'm guessing they probably grew up together at church.
I knew she was from Ohio.
Yeah, they lived in the house just right next to the
just
church
how
building.
they met, I don't know. Maybe that's
probably at church.
Just a church.
Probably don't know. They just always
they always knew each other from church.
Probably. Okay, when you were in school, do you remember getting your name mentioned in the local or school newspaper?
When I was in school?
Mm-hmm.
Read that again, Julie.
When you were in school, do you remember getting your name mentioned in the local or school newspaper?
You probably did when you were leading the bands that marched around and all that. You were probably announced that you were the first.
I was in the band for 8 years, and quite often there were several schools in. Now it's more consolidated, but back then we would have about once or twice a year we would have the bands from all of the different schools meet together, and we would play in the Coliseum in Marion when the tournaments were going on. And then
Is that basketball tournaments?
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have football or anything in those days.
And what else did
Do you remember how you got the job of drum major?
I don't know how I got the job.
It wasn't.
Did you try out?
It was
Or-
kind of a leader,
The band leader?
yeah, something like that, marching band. We did that. So
He
Well,
had a
that's the
stick,
drum
but I don't
major.
think he ever had.
Yeah, that's like a drum major.
Yeah,
now.
in our band they called that person the drum major.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you led the band then?
well, I think I did for a while.
Marched ahead of it anyway.
But I played an oboe saxophone for 8 years, and about that time too, Mother wanted me to. We had a piano, and she gave me some. She had a lady to teach me some lessons on the piano, and that I've really never forgotten. I mean, I can play pretty good by note, or just by mind. You know, picking up something without the notes.
Thelma, do you ever remember getting mentioned in the newspaper during school?
We didn't have a newspaper. It was a little school, even through high school. We might have had when the seniors came through, you know, and they were graduating that year. We all had a name, special, silly name or something, you know. But that's the only way
Were you in any school clubs? Do you remember anything like that? Like,
there weren't any clubs.
oh,
then.
okay.
Daddy was going to say something else.
Well, I remember on my, it might have been a diploma or close to graduation time, that Ransom Bramblett was our principal. And he wrote a real nice note
About your
about me being a good student and faithful and honorary and all of those sort of things, and it kind of touched me. But
where
he
is
was a
that
good
paper
principal.
now? Do we still have it?
It's in my office at the bank.
Oh, okay.
I scanned it.
I forget just what it said, but you might remember
Yeah, it
that.
was all fine and all good things about you.
Okay, after graduating high school, did you leave home before going to college?
Well, Julie, after I graduated from high school, in the next year in January of, I graduated in 44, in January of 45, I went into the Air Force, Army Air Force. And of course that was right at the tail end of the World War II, and I was in for about 9 months. And I kid everyone, I was in long enough to finish the war and they let me out. So then I came home from service, and my brother Jim, who had lived in Sycamore, Illinois, moved to Lafayette, and we decided to go into a skating rink business. And it was spelled Acyalla. We pronounced the Akawayala, but I'm sure it was pronounced something different in Spanish. Is that Spanish?
Yeah.
Akiyaya or something like that.
How did you come up with that name?
Well, that was Ruth. She was good at doing things like that, wasn't she? She's the one that
Ruth.
chose the name.
Ruth?
Yeah.
Probably so. I don't remember just.
Does it mean something that you was it up and down or?
Yeah, up and down.
I think maybe that's what it meant, up and down. So we were in that business for a while, and of course I'd known Thelma a long time because Charles was in South Bend. Of course, her folks were in South Bend, and we would go up to visit Charles, and we went to the same congregation up there when we visited.
But you didn't know me.
Well,
You didn't know who I was even then.
I didn't pay much attention to
No,
you
that's
then,
for sure.
but it kind of grew on us, you know. When we
When we were
both
at
went to
college.
college, after I got back from service, we went to Purdue. And, of course, we attended Kossuth Street at West Lafayette.
Do you remember what you did between graduation and January 45? Did you have a job that fall, or?
You talking to me?
No,
No,
Daddy.
he's talking to me.
Because that would have been 7 or 8 months,
Yeah, that
probably.
had been 7 or 8 months. What did I do?
Did your dad have a business you helped
You
with?
took airplane flight training.
Well, honey, that was after that. That's after I got out of the airport. Brian, right now I can't think what I did there.
Right. Did you ever have a paper route?
Yeah, I had paper route.
You mowed yards for people.
I'm pretty sure I kept busy because that's one thing my dad and mom were, wanted us to do, pulling thistles in the 3-acre farm that we had.
Was it the Marion Telegraph you delivered, or do you remember?
The Marion Chronicle. That might have kept me busy and just around home for a while.
Should we go on?
Of course, in about 1940,
She didn't answer.
this is one of the questions. About 1941, our old home burned in Herbst. And about the only thing that stood after the old home burned was a chimney on the front of the home. So when we built a new home, we built it around that chimney.
How did you find out about the fire?
I remember I was in school and someone called and said that the Hoggatt home in Herbst was on fire, smoke billowing out of the attic. And the time I really got home from school, it was pretty well gone.
Did they ever find out what it was? Was it electrical? Or?
No, I don't think so.
Might not even been
I
electric.
don't remember exactly what caused it.
We didn't have electric in our homes. A lot of places at this time.
We did.
You maybe did. You were in hers.
But I don't remember what caused the fire in the home.
Yeah,
It seemed to me it started in the attic. I imagine it was from a chimney, that...
Was anyone at home at the time?
No, I don't think so. Were they?
I was thinking maybe it was reported by Mother, but I'm not sure.
Did your family just build another home right away then?
Yeah.
You stayed with friends
His
or
uncle
family?
sort of was in charge of building it, wasn't he?
Burley Hoggatt, an uncle, Dad's brother, he was a carpenter, and he helped to build the house, and maybe some others that were in the family too.
I remember them saying that when he figured out he had to build stair steps, he didn't know how to do the next step,
Well,
or something like
he
that.
maybe a typical carpenter, I don't know, but we had a stairway, went up this way and then up this way, and he said about noon one day, he said, I've been working on this thing all morning. He says, if I don't get anything more done than what I've done this morning, I'm going to quit.
Were you and George the only kids left home at that time?
Yeah. Now, George was 3 years older than me.
Hey, your mother wrote a poem to be read at her funeral, and in that poem she said that twice her home was razed by fire and burned up all she had. Do you know about the earlier fire?
I don't know, Brian.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Why did she mention that?
Well, it was just a poem that she
Now-
had to have be read.
Now, it might be Judy or Jerry would know the answer to that.
Yeah, they
And
turned.
we
They
actually-
denied
they
it
didn't know
too.
either, did
They
they?
didn't
I
know
don't think
either.
they
I was.
knew.
We have that picture of
Could
them
be your
with Beulah.
childhood.
Real early picture.
Yeah,
And in front of a house that was unfamiliar to you, and maybe that was burned.
I don't know.
Okay.
Mother, how about you? After high school, did you go directly to college?
I babysat for the neighbors there, and I worked at a factory in South Bend. Boy, I had a hard time keeping up with it because you had to stay in time with the people on the line. They didn't want you to get mixed up or anything. And what it was putting packages, making packages. It's like what you get a pie from McDonald's. We had to make those packages up and put them in a box so that they could be used by anybody that had that kind of stuff. And that was,
You were glad to go to college.
I was glad when it was time to go back to college. And then another year, the next year, I worked at Robertson's department store, had a tea room upstairs. And because I was going to be a home ec student anyway, I thought that would be a good job for me. But I had a hard time trying to wait tables and stuff.
Tell them what your college costs were the first year.
Oh, I don't know if I got the right number or not, but my mother kept track of all the money I had away at school, and I think it was 700 something, or maybe 400. I'm not sure, but it was nothing. We didn't have any. We didn't have to pay so much for each lesson we had.
Tuition?
Yeah, they didn't figure it up that way. Like you do now. If you take so many hours, you pay for
so much
each
per hour. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of that way.
Okay. How did your family celebrate holidays, and which ones did you celebrate?
Well, I remember Christmas, of course, and Thanksgiving. When did they come together?
Did you do 4th of July things?
I think we would come up to South Bend more on the 4th of July because the church there had a.
There was
at Potawatomi Park, they had an annual get-together.
They did, but also, well, sometime during that summer, always during the summer, we had a playland park, it was called. Had all kinds of little things to ride on. And especially you could ride on a boat through a dark, shadowed room, or and come back. And the boy said, "Oh, I gave her a kiss," and when we were in there or something like that, that was always good being carried on like that. Not that I ever did anything like that, but I heard him say it, But it was.
No, you didn't do it.
It was a penny. It was a penny place. On that day, you could get your ride for a penny.
Wow. Do you remember, did you do anything special to celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving? Did you go somewhere?
I don't remember.
At that time, the churches didn't think much, I think, about remembering Christmas. I mean, it was considered a Catholic thing, and we just did not remember Christmas as a...
But as far as a family getting together, I think they did. Joe.
Did you do a tree at your house, or?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a tree, and you did too, didn't you, Mom?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, you didn't?
I don't think we ever did.
Yeah.
There weren't any trees back there in the field, I guess, that would fit it, so we didn't have any.
Do you remember anything about gifts that you got?
I remember one Christmas, Mother got me a gift, the only thing she could afford, I think. There's a little can, and it had a little lever on it that you'd put, you'd trip it some way like that, it would flip something, you'd try to get it into a can. It probably cost 25 cents, and that's probably as much as they could afford.
Is that the kind of stuff they sold at their store?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember anything about gifts, Mother?
Yes. My dad and mother never thought about getting gifts. Or my dad didn't anyway. My mother didn't think much of it either. But because us kids got older, we started wanting to let them know what we wanted to get. And I got my mother that set of dishes in there that's just clear glass. It has a pink or orange thing around on the tops. It's a dessert dish and then a plate to go with it. And I got her that for Christmas one year because that was when I had been working in town, and I thought I was making big money, I guess. But anyway, I got her that. I don't remember what I got for others. But she gave it back to me, of course, when she was closing up her kitchen and all.
Okay, how old were you when you started dating?
Us two?
I think that question's coming later. To each other, dating each other.
Yeah, how old were you when you started dating?
I wasn't very old. I didn't date anybody else without being people that my cousins or something.
I dated a girl a few times in Marion, but just when it fit into the picture, I'm not sure. It might have been before I went to the service.
Probably was.
Well, this kind of goes with it. Any other girlfriends or boyfriends before you started seeing each other?
I don't know. I don't remember anything very important, at least in that stand. The church people at Lafayette they had a few couples were brave enough to take on the college students that were members of the church and have them come to their house. And one time we went to Anderson's, and you were sitting there playing the piano, and I sat down on the other end of the bench, and pretty soon the thing collapsed.
Oh my!
That was funny. And I got a picture somewhere of that occasion. And there was a fellow that came to live in Fort Wayne just maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and he was in that group that was at their house that time, I remember. And I don't ever see the other people very much anyway. The Nelson boys were in that group too, but I don't know what he did. He was involved in the skating rink part of the time too, so that was after he quit school.
Okay, what childhood memories do you have of each other?
I know what she's going to say.
I do too.
I
can't
don't think
wait.
I better say that.
Oh yeah, please do. We don't have it on tape.
Well, this one family came to visit the late elder of the church there, and he was an insurance man. And when they had so much trouble with their house getting caught on fire and everything, we understood that he helped this man that was an elder there, Brother Ewer. He helped his dad get on the insurance business.
My dad.
Yeah, he helped your dad get started in that. And what was I going to say?
I thought you were going to say something else.
Well, didn't he? Well, we want to know your childhood memories do you have of each other. I thought he came to a certain church picnic.
Yeah, that's where he came to. But he didn't know that some other kids that were the same age as he was got sort of upset because they didn't think he was, since he was a boy from outside somewhere, he didn't belong to that group, that he should have gotten to hold the sign up. It said Church of Christ, 19 whatever year that was.
So the visitor got to hold up the church sign.
Yeah. And we had a hassle about it every year.
You better put that on. What childhood memories do you have of Thelma?
Of Thelma?
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't remember me at all, I'm sure.
Oh.
I didn't know her that well until after we had gone to college.
Oh.
When they came up here from home and came to church at it was Calvin and Caroline then, they usually went to Charles's house for dinner because my mom's family was always getting together with them, doing something, having a picnic or something, every weekend. And so Charles and Maxine had to make their own friends.
Well, yeah, we would stay at Charles and Maxine's house. I remember they lived at 109 East 8th Street. And Richard was the only boy that they had, and I was pretty close to Richard. We liked to get together and knock balloons around and do things out in the yard.
Sometimes they let you come up and stay with him on the weekend
Yeah.
or something.
Okay. How well did you get along with your siblings?
They were gone when the only one close to me was George. And it seemed like he was gone when
So you were the baby of the
I
family.
was the baby.
Your playmates were mostly your cousins, weren't they?
Yeah.
How much age difference between you and George?
Well, Paul was 3 years older than me, and Lyndall was about my age. And they lived within a mile of us there in Herbst.
George was about 3 years older than you.
Yeah,
were.
he was 3 years older than me. He's about the same age as Paul was. So we were cousins, and we would ride around on Sunday afternoons with bicycles, and finally Paul got a motorbike, and we took turns in riding that once in a while, and just think.
What you told me one time you rode your bicycle with Paul and Lyndall or someone up to Converse. Do you remember why you'd go there?
Well, we would ride as far as Converse. That would be a few miles away on Sunday afternoon, just to kind of get away.
Was there some some destination there that you went
Not
to?
necessarily.
You got up on top of the bridge they had there.
Well, yeah.
You could roll down,
But I remember one time that Paul and I had to race from the Swayze Road, which was about a half a mile south of where our house was there in Herbst. When the mailman came along, he was going to give a dime to the one who would ride the fastest from that road corner to the railroad track. in Herbst, and that was about a quarter mile north. So we're talking about 3/4 of a mile. So Paul and I raced, and I went ahead, Paul, for the first almost a half a mile, and we got to about our house, and he overtook me, and he won the race. He got the dime.
Oh,
I'm not sure. Yeah, Paul did. I'm not sure.
Lyndall? What happened to Lyndall?
No, Linville wasn't in that.
Oh, he wasn't.
I'm not sure that was a quarter instead of a dime, and that was a lot of money back then.
wow.
But I petered out. I didn't win.
Are Paul and Lyndall brothers?
Yeah.
Who is their
Was
Who's
he
their
pulled
father?
up then bad?
Well, not as bad as he is now.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Was that Burley's kids?
That's Burley. Yeah,
Okay.
Uncle Burley.
What was wrong with Linville?
Lyndall?
Yeah.
Was not, but he wasn't racing that day.
My
He was-
mother said he was crippled. Was there something?
No,
it's
Paul
not.
was the one
Paul's
that
the one
was
that's crippled, and
Oh.
he's in nursing home now.
Oh, well. There was one of them that used to limp when we would go to family reunions. Which
Yeah,
one was
well,
that?
That's Paul.
Was he in an accident or something?
He probably got
He
worn
was
out
born-
in the
He was
race.
born that way.
He was born handicapped,
You know,
Oh.
he just
and he couldn't speak too well either, could he?
Thelma,
no.
how well did you get along with your siblings?
Oh, I like to do things Warren was doing, and the funny thing we do, my mother would want me to peel potatoes and help her get supper ready, and he had to go out and do things in the barn, and I said, if you'll stay in here and do the potatoes, I'll go out and do things in the barn, which I like to go out there and do whatever. I don't remember now what I did, chase the cow in or out or something. But anyway, my mother didn't like it. She said, now, he'll go stay in here and listen to the radio. That's what he'll do, and I need you to come in here and do the supper. So she when she got her way about it, she said I had to stand and help in the house, which was dull to me at that time. And he got to go out and take care of the animals outside and feed the pigs and all those things.
Well, I think it was interesting about Warren and you going to the football game.
Oh, yeah. No, not football, basketball.
Oh, basketball.
The only thing that we ever did at that school, they had basketball games. And our team was the worst one in the whole county. We never could get a winning team. I don't know why. But anyway, we still wanted to go. And my dad had one tractor he had a truck, you know, he hauled things around in, and then he had a tractor. Well, if he was going to use the tractor, he'd get the battery out of the, if he was going to use it, anyway, he'd move it to the other one. So if we wanted to go to a basketball game, Warren would go out there and take that battery out and put it in the other one so we could ride it to school. And he didn't even have a driver's license at that date. We'd drive down there and it'd be snowing bad, you know, and I thought the school would really get mad at us. They never did catch up with us and get us in trouble. And Mother had to put up with us. This happened because my dad was working during the war at a night shift, and that was always really disturbing to us. We didn't like that he had to work a night shift, and when he got home it was so late we never got to talk to him because he'd be sleeping late in the mornings then. So, yeah, I think that's...
Okay, the next question is after your wedding, where did you make your first home?
Okay.
You were working for the...
Well, I was working for Muir's, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And we moved to Springfield, Ohio.
Do you remember how you got a job in Springfield, Ohio?
Well, I was working in Muir's and in Lafayette, and I was transferred over there. And I remember,
It was some drugstore, I'll tell you.
and of course, we were involved with the church over there, Church of Christ in Springfield. And we rented a little, a 2-room apartment for $15 a week.
It didn't have a bathroom in it. We had to go
I'd
upstairs
go
to the
upstairs and
bathroom.
share a bathroom with someone who lived upstairs.
And that place was right across the street from the Collier Publishing Company. Collier magazines, you know, and they had other magazines back then too. And the men there come all rushing out, you know, at leftover time. It was interesting, but I didn't want them to see me where I was anyway. But it was really interesting to go to church there. Boy, we just thought that was more fun because we had always thought it'd be wonderful if we could get someplace to go to church when we left there, and then we could ride home and tell people in Lafayette about doing that, which we did, I guess, but it was interesting to us. The people that Daddy mentioned today, the Reese family.
The Reese family, yeah.
Had 3 boys, and one day they had a picnic, and their relative, they had a younger man who was one of their relatives and his wife, and we were riding in the back seat of their car. They were taking us to the picnic, I guess, and they ran through a stoplight and hit another car, didn't they? Something happened anyway. We went around like this in the center of the street, I guess. And we weren't hurt, but we thought we were in trouble.
Didn't you meet the Himeses at one of those places?
No. No.
That was
The
later.
Himeses? No, that was in Lafayette.
Paul married you, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're back to your childhood. What naughty things do you remember doing as a child? And how were you punished, or how did you try to hide it?
Oh, now, Julie, you wouldn't want me to...
Pass that opportunity on to others.
What was considered naughty when you were a child?
Oh, using a nigger flipper. Oh, I shouldn't say nigger flipper.
Oh.
It's one of these things that goes up like this, and you hold...
Uh-oh.
Well, what I like to do is get in the mailbox and get something out of the mailbox, because we had a mailman that come by once in a while, and he would leave us chocolate. Well, of course, the chocolate was not chocolate like you would think of it. It was X-Lax, that kind of stuff. And if you ate some of that, and my mother told me all about that later, because I had tried that one day, and I got the interest in that. So my cousins told me, I guess that's how I.
Some of the naughty things they used to do.
Another thing I did, I wanted to go to town with my dad. He was going to go to town like on a Saturday or something, and he must have said, "Well, go ask Mom if you can go with me." And so I went and asked Mother, and she said, "Oh, I don't want you to go to town with him. You just stay here. I've got things to do out in the yard, and you can come out there with me." Well, somehow or other, I managed to get my best dress on, and I went and told him I could go with him. I didn't get a very good report out of that.
Did you make it to town?
Yeah, we did, and he came home, and of course, she was really upset because she was looking for me at the neighbors.
Uh-oh.
One thing I remember at
man.
Halloween, that some of us kids got together, and there was a fella that had a car, and of course we weren't old enough to have a car, but we fixed him. We all got in his garage and bounced his car sideways in his garage.
Oh,
I don't remember the end of that story, but I thought that was great.
I've heard that before. In those times, they had little bitty garages, and all you could do is, you probably couldn't open the doors on both sides, could you?
oh my goodness.
You know, they were
Well, we
just
got that
little.
thing sideways in it there. Another thing some of them would do, and I don't remember doing this personally, they'd push over the outhouses.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the earliest memories you have of home?
I remember I had to go with Mother out to the chicken house, and while I was out there, there was always a rooster that would run up and try to peck me or something, you know. And so she said, "Now you take this broom along with you, and if he bothers, just chase him away from me." But I didn't want to go out to the chicken house.
Dean,
Well,
what is your earliest memory of home?
I don't know what the earliest memory. I remember when the Mom was sitting on the cement step on the back porch, off of the back porch, and she was pitting cherries. And I had a little tricycle, and I was riding from there down the sidewalk and up the driveway. We had a cement driveway for both sets of wheels, and I'd take the tricycle and ride up to where she was pitting cherries, and I would get a handful of cherries, and then I'd ride my bicycle and go out to the road and back again by the time they were all gone, so I'd need some more. She said, "Dean, now you've had enough of these." You just quit
Was that a tricycle or bicycle?
Oh, no, it's tricycle. So I must have been 5 years old.
That's nice. Okay. What did you do and where did your parents take you to have family fun time?
My family had all kinds of relations living around South Bend, and we all came to church at the same place. So whenever we wanted to do anything, or this would happen, Grandpa would come from wherever he was in Florida, and as it got older, he lived in Florida, and he'd come up and he'd bring his new wife with him, because my grandmother had passed away right after he moved back to Wisconsin. And she was the opposite of my grandmother. She wanted to do everything like a single lady. She'd never been married or had children. She'd been a single lady. Well, everybody got so they didn't like her too well and didn't care about her coming to their house because she was so picky and particular about what they fixed for her, you know. But anyway.
Did you go to parks, or you made a couple trips into Ohio, didn't you?
Oh, well, what I remember in Swayze, and by the way, the Swayze, when you go into the town of Swayze, they have a sign that says this is the only Swayze in the world. I remember going to Swayze on Saturday night. They had a movie on.
Yes.
And the thing to do on Saturday night was leave Herbst and go to Swayze. That was about 3 miles. And we would sit in the car or on the courthouse, whatever, and watch people walk by. And then we would look at the movie, and then we'd go home. That's kind of something we look forward to.
Was it a different movie each week?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
We did the same thing we went to North Liberty, which is about 2 miles away. But Mother and Daddy never took us up there. We could go with the neighbor people if they would let us go with them. So Warren and I would sometimes go up there for that. And they had girls in their families, and we could all just walk around the square, you know, and guys were sitting in the cars and girls were walking down the street trying to get their attention. But we had trouble with the movies out there. They weren't very good.
Okay, who are the oldest relatives you remember, and what do you remember about them?
Oldest what kids?
Relatives.
Relatives?
Who are the oldest relatives you remember, and what do you remember about them?
The one I run around with wasn't a relative. He was Wilbur Downs. And he and I went to bowling at Kokomo probably for a year, about every weekend. And he was a member of the church.
But he was
And
about
he's
40 years old.
quite a bit older than me. He wasn't a relative, and I don't...
He wasn't married either, was he?
No, he wasn't married. He married after we left, of course.
Do you remember your mother's parents?
I don't remember him that well. No, I don't.
The
remember.
one boy that had the bad finger or something, though, you remember him. He was on your mother's side, wasn't he? The boy that was...
I didn't remember Mom's parents.
How about you, Thelma?
What am I supposed to remember now?
Who are the oldest relatives you remember, and what do you remember about them?
Well, that was Grandpa. Grandpa was always friendly to all the kids. Sometimes they'd get mad at him because he wouldn't play with them only, but he was friendly with the
You mean your
kids.
Grandpa Piety?
Mm-hmm. Grandpa Campbell was sort of fun too because he took care of horses for a dairy there in South Bend, and he had to put those things on the horses, you know, on their feet and all that, keep those horses in shape. And I remember when I went to stay with Aunt Nellie and Uncle Forrest in that barber shop one night, that I was woke up in the morning by a wagon of coming through town, you know, bringing milk to everybody on that street.
What do you remember about your great-grandma Lockridge?
Oh, that was always fun to go to Grandma's house. Warren and I would go in she had a little special room. It was called what do you call those special rooms, you know? It has your piano in it.
Sitting room?
Huh?
A sitting room? Or?
Well, it was for company.
Mm-hmm.
and she'd have that room lined up with church. But we wanted to go in and play that piano. Well, we'd go in there, and Warren would pump on it, and I would try to play it, you know. But she didn't want us to do that too much. And I said, Grandma, can I go upstairs? I knew she had an upstairs. And I went up there, and she had some stacks of magazines, which was the National Geographic. Magazines that were old even then. And she had stacks of them in there. And I just loved to go up there and look at those magazines all the time we were there. But, and she had only certain kind of soap she used in her sink. She had a back porch, and a sink was in that back porch area, and she could wash her hands out there. But she had the smelliest soap. It was something that was really fixed with perfume, I guess.
Okay. What were your chores as a child, and did you especially dislike any of them?
A score?
Chores.
Chores?
Chores. Your
Jobs.
your job around home.
Well, I milked a cow. We had a cow, and my chores was to keep the thistles down out of a couple acres of ground that we had. And George and I were asked by our parents to go out and chop the thistles or pull them up or something. So we took care of that, and we had a lot of gooseberry bushes. We would pick the gooseberries, and we had apricot trees, and we would, fruit. Mother had a garden, and we were pretty busy in the garden. And what was the question?
That's
What
why-
chores did we not like? Or
Yeah, were there any chores that you did you didn't really like?
I guess not.
Okay.
No.
Thelma, what were your chores as a child?
That I didn't like. Well, I didn't
Well,
like
any of your chores.
I didn't like to have to wash the dishes every meal. I didn't like to have to clean up the house. I wanted to go outside and play in the yard or something, or go play with the pigs. We had some pigs. You'd take a stick or something and scrape them, and they'd lay down and just take a nap. They just it was so fun. We had one especially that was partially retarded or something, and he was so funny. We couldn't get used to him. But you just scrape them a little bit, they'd lay down like they were princes or somebody,
Were those all your chores as a child?
Well, I
Cooking
helped out
and-
with anything. My mother went out to the orchard and picked apples off of bad old trees that weren't very good, because the place we lived was an old farm, and they remodeled the house and everything, but there were a lot of strange things around it.
Well, you gathered the eggs too, didn't you?
Oh yes, and I had to clean off the shells. They have shells in the egg house or chicken house, and the chickens sit up here and they go to the bathroom right on that shelf. So that was one of the things I had to just clean off that shelf about once a week or once every 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, what kind of books did you like to read as a child?
Oh, I had everything that they had in the library. I read and read and read. I'd read all night, and then the next morning I had to go to school, and I wasn't very wide awake about going to school.
I don't remember reading too much
Oh,
when I
not
was in
that.
school.
I did. I wanted to read
We're a
everything.
little different that way. I did pretty good in math and arithmetic and mathematics, things like that. But I don't remember liking to read that much though.
Okay,
I remember we used to go to Aunt Clara's, and Ansel would go down the basement in the afternoon and turn on a radio he had, and he would open the furnace door so we could see the fire in the furnace while we listened to the Renzo man or whatever. What was his name? He was a secret man, and he always had something really exciting on his program. That was what we did on Sunday afternoon.
Okay, do you ever remember your family not having enough food because of hard times?
I think we had enough food. Dad had 3 or 4 jobs. He was a trucker for a while. He was in insurance business for a while, and he became a watchmaker, a watch repairer. And it seemed like during the Depression years, we had our cow, and We had some chickens, and I don't remember that we any time didn't have enough to eat though.
Thelma, how about you?
Yeah, we were the same way. It was my mother. Would every year we'd roast a pig, or we'd have one fixed, so we could have the meat off of it. She'd fix that. So we had things at the times, sometimes that we weren't really wanting to eat them then, but then that's what we had. We eat it. And always had a garden, It was a lot of work, but we had the stuff there to do the work on and use it. So we always had a garden.
What nursery rhyme or bedtime stories were your favorites? Do you remember?
Birdie, birdie, where's your nest? Birdie, birdie, where's your nest? And then, let's see, sing us about in the treetops I love best. Birdie, birdie, every baby would always go to sleep on. Where's your nest? In the treetops I love. And I'd like to go to sleep, and Gene and Leslie and Brian would, Grandma, what are you singing? Mother, what are you singing? What's that song? I didn't want to sing it anyway.
Dean, do you remember any nursery rhyme or bedtime stories you really liked? Okay. This one may be easier. What were your favorite Bible stories as a child?
They didn't have Bible stories when you were going to church there, did they, when you were little?
I would think so.
That one lady was a teacher of the class, but
I don't remember being in her class at all. I remember being in Uncle Burley's class. And probably the usual ones, Daniel, Moses, and Joseph, and Jacob, and some of those that even today. But I don't remember any specifics unless we had a visiting preacher there that had a protracted meeting for about 2 weeks, and then he'd delve into things a little deeper.
Kids too.
But, as a child, were there any favorite Bible people that you...
I remember when, and I probably still got it out there, a Bible storybook that Mom and Dad had given to me. I remember it was a blue cover. It's about that thick. And you remember seeing that? Stories of the Bible?
Yeah,
and I would do some reading in that. I thought that was enjoyable.
Well, good.
We had one of those too.
Thelma, what were your favorite Bible stories as a child?
Oh, boy, let's see. Well, I think I was reading about Mary and Jesus, and trying to understand what was going on with that life, and I wasn't explained about sex and anything. And if I figured out something about why were those animals doing that, and what were they doing? Can I go out there and watch them when they have their new lamb or something? Oh no, that's not something girls can do. So I wanted to go out and see the new thing born, but she didn't want me to go out there and do that. That wasn't very nice.
Okay, whose funeral was the first you remember attending? And we also have one, whose wedding was the first you remember attending? Do you remember either of those?
No, it's too late at night for me to be thinking. I have to think on that a while.
I think it was maybe the first wedding that I really remembered was Pauline and Marlo when they got married, because they got married about the same time we did, a little bit earlier.